discussed up to this particular point. Okay, so today we are going to discuss about temperature distribution, and today we are considering the case of a heat generation in a solid cylinder. Okay, we are considering a solid cylinder. Okay, so let us consider that this is the solid cylinder, and there are two things that we are going to consider in this particular case. First is it is a one dimensional case, and the second is the steady state is prevailing actually. So basically we are considering that at the center there is some source because of which there is heat generation, and this is actually q dot. So q dot represents the heat generation within the solid or within the cylinder. And we can also consider that the temperature here at the center is T naught, and on the surface of the cylinder the temperature is T wall. So for calculating the temperature variation, we need to actually write the three-dimensional conduction equation first of all. So this is the conduction equation which we are using here. We can also go for the simple conduction equation that we have written earlier, that was actually uh, given in the terms of the uh, 1 upon r raised to power n k r raised to power n dt by dr plus q dot is equal to 0. So that was the case of the steady state actually. So this is the equation for the steady state. So you can put the value of n equal to 1, and then you will get this particular equation that we have got here in this particular equation. Okay, so we can directly get this particular equation from here, or otherwise if we know or if we remember the whole equation which is given here, which is given by del 2 t by del r square plus 1 by r del t by del r plus 1 by r square del t del 2 t by del theta square del 2 t by del z square plus q dot k is equal to 1 by alpha del t by del tau. So we can use this equation or we can go for this particular equation also. Okay, so it would be better that if you remember this particular equation, which is more general and easy to remember actually. And only thing is, because it's the cylindrical coordinates, we can put the value of n is equal to 1. So it would be easier for you. So I am starting from this particular step only. Okay, that means I am given with this particular equation, and I am putting the value of n equal to 1 in this particular case. So basically you can see here, once I put the value of n equal to 1, so this equation will be, let us write it once again. This equation will be transformed to 1 upon r k times r dt by dr plus q dot is equal to 0. This is what we are going to get actually. And then we can consider that the value of thermal conductivity, that is the value of k is constant. Okay, k is not varying with respect to temperature, or k is not varying with respect to uh, um, what you call, with respect to time also. Okay, so k is constant, so it's not a function of, it's not a function of temperature. Okay, or it's not a first function of space coordinate. Okay, so that is why we can take it out of the differentiation part. Here also one more term has become d by dt. Okay, d by dr rather. Okay, 1 by r raised to power n d by dr of k r raised to power n dt by dr. Okay, so here also it is d by dr, it has to come here, otherwise it won't be correct actually. So from there, when we take the value of k outside of this differentiation sign, and we divide the whole equation by k and multiply the whole equation by r, so you will get this particular equation, d by dr into of r raised to power r dt by dr plus q dot by k r. So any doubt till now you can ask me. So basically once we know the standard equation, or the equation which we are going to use, if it is known to us, then the further problem is quite easy. So let us see what we can do next. So this is the equation that we got: t by dr of r dt by dr plus q dot by k into r is equal to 0. And once again, let me remind you that this q dot is heat generation, and it is heat generation per unit volume. So unit is watt per meter cube. So we can integrate this equation. Here we will get r dt by dr q dot by 2 r square by 2k is equal to c1. This is what we get. Then we can divide the whole equation by r here. Okay, and finally we will get this particular equation: dt by dr q dot by 2k, instead of r square, this r and this r will cancel out, c1 by r. And then we can integrate this equation once again, and finally we will get t plus q dot by 4 r square by k c1 log of r plus c2. Okay, so r actually, you understand, is any radius. See, it could be here also. So this is r, and here we say that the outer radius of the cylinder is capital R. Okay, this is the radius. So now we have to calculate the value of C1 and C2. So it's quite easy. You know the boundary conditions. If I take R is equal to 0, means at the center. So this is the center line, center of cylinder. So at the center of the cylinder, when R is equal to 0, there won't be any change in the temperature, because it is the heat which is being generated at this particular point. So we can say that this value dt by dr is equal to 0. So let us see what is the value of either c1 or c2 that we get when we put dt by dr equal to 0. So we have to go back to this particular equation here. Now you see it here, you put the value of r equal to 0. So before putting the value of r, you can multiply here by r, so it will become r, and here also you will get the r, and this r will not be there. So when you put r is equal to 0, so this term will be cancelled, this term will also be cancelled, so c1 will come out to be 0. So basically when we apply this particular boundary condition, c1 is equal to 0. So then the second boundary condition is, at r is equal to capital R, T is equal to TW. TW is the temperature of the wall here. So you can see here the c1 is already 0. Now we can apply the second boundary condition. This is the second boundary condition, and this is what we can keep in this particular equation. This is the temperature distribution equation. Temperature distribution equation, in which we have to calculate the value of c1 and c2. Okay, so uh, when we will put the value of T as TW, you will get TW here plus Q dot by 4. Now here in place of R square, we will get capital R square divided by 4K. C1 is already 0. So this term will be cancelled out because it's 0, and you are left with C2. So C2 is equal to TW plus Q dot R square by 4K, and C1 you know is already 0. And now we can put the value of C1 and C2 in this particular equation. Let us see. This is the equation: C1 is equal to 0, and this is the value of C2. This whole TW plus Q dot by 4R square by K. So you put the values in this particular equation here. So T plus Q dot by K R square by 4, as it is C1, this term goes, the value of C2 is here. So this will come on the right hand side, TW plus Q dot by 4K R square. So I can take this TW on this side. So I will get T minus TW is equal to, this term can be taken on the right hand side, and Q dot by 4K is constant. So it would be R square minus R square. So this is the equation. This is one of the, you can say, final temperature distribution equation. And then, because in the last lecture also I told you we would like to represent the value of T. Now what is this T? This T is temperature at any radius R. So here the temperature is T, here the temperature is T wall, and at the center the temperature is T naught. So we want to calculate the value of T in terms of T naught as well as TW. So what we do, we calculate the value of T at center also. So at R is equal to 0, this is the center line temperature, that is T is equal to T naught, and this is the maximum value, as I had, because the heat generation is taking place at the center. Okay, so we can put it here. Instead of T, I will put T naught. So the equation becomes T naught minus TW, and because the value of R goes 0, we are left with Q dot by 4K R square. Okay, so this is the equation. So this is one of the equation, this is another equation. So what we can do, we can divide both these equations. So in equation 1, this T naught is there. This T naught comes only when you are using this particular boundary condition. So when we divide both these equations, we get T minus TW divided by T naught by minus TW. So you can see it here. It is uh, T minus TW, and here it is T naught by TW. Okay, so this will come in the ratio, and if you divide here, this Q by 4K and Q by 4K will cancel out, and here we will get the R square. Okay, so we will get this particular equation, and then you can write it as in this manner. By cancelling here, you will get 1, and then what we have done, we have subtracted both the sides from 1. Okay, so 1 minus and 1 minus both the sides. So finally, by on simplification, you will get this particular equation. So this is basically the temperature distribution equation, uh, final temperature distribution equation for solid cylinder. Okay, so quite easy, not too difficult. Here we have just calculated the temperature distribution. Further, you can calculate the value of heat transfer also in this particular case. Okay, so in a similar manner, we can derive the heat generation equation for a solid sphere also. So that is the next thing. Once again, we have the equation 1 upon, I will change the color, uh, 1 upon R raised to power n d by dr of k R raised to power n dt by dr plus q dot is equal to 0. So in case of spherical coordinates, the value of n is equal to 2. So the equation becomes 1 over r square d by dr k r square dt by dr plus q dot is equal to 0. That is the equation. And when we consider that k is a constant, then we can write and multiply the whole equation by r square. So we'll get d by dr of r square dt by dr plus q dot r square by k is equal to 0. And once again, what we have considered here is one dimensional case and steady state, and the heat transfer is taking place in the radial direction only. That is the condition. So once again, it's quite simple. So this is the equation that I have written here. This is the equation. Okay, so you have to start from this particular step. This is the equation that you need to remember. This is one, you can see this is a quite complicated equation. You may not remember it, so forget about it. Don't need to write this particular equation. So from this equation we can integrate. First integration will give us r square dt by dr plus q by 3 r cube by k is equal to c1, and dt by dr can be written as, you can divide the whole equation by r square here. Okay, so this is what you get, dt by dr plus q dot r3 k c1 by r square. And in the next, you can integrate it once again here. This was the equation here. So integrating it once again, you will get T1 plus Q dot R square 6K minus C1 R by R plus C2. So C1 and C2 are the constants of integration. Once again, the boundary conditions, first boundary condition is R is equal to 0, dt by dr is equal to 0. And the second boundary condition, R is equal to capital R, T is equal to TW. So basically, once again, the center line temperature here is T naught, the wall temperature of the sphere is TW, and the radius of the sphere is capital R, and any radius is we have considered as R. So once again, you can see it here. If you use this particular equation and you use the first boundary condition, okay, what do you get? So this equation can be written as R square dt by dr plus q dot r cube 3k is equal to c1. So you can see, if you put r, the value of r as 0, this will go, and c1 will come out to be 0. So that is what we have written here. And then from second boundary condition, when we will put it here, put it here in this particular equation, so t is equal to tw, and r square can be replaced by capital R square. Other things remain constant. C1 is already 0, so this is the value of C2. So you know the values of C1 and C2. We can just put them in this particular equation, which is the general temperature distribution equation for a sphere. And finally, uh, we get the value of T minus TW as this one. Okay, this is only we have put these values in this particular equation here. Okay, this is the value of C naught and C1 and C2, which we have used here, and we got this particular equation. So we got T minus TW is equal to Q dot by 6k R square minus R square. Then as I told you that we need to define the temperature distribution in terms of T, T naught and TW. So what we do, we can calculate the value of temperature at the center, where the value of R is equal to 0, and it is known as the center line temperature. And this center line temperature is the maximum temperature of the sphere. So just you will get this particular equation. This is the equation 2, this is the equation 3. You divide both these equations, and finally this is the temperature distribution equation. And you can see it is exactly same the equation which you got in case of cylinder. There is no change. You can see it. I will show you. Let's see it here, which is the case of the cylinder. Okay, and here also you got the same equation. I think yeah, this is the final equation. When you subtract from both sides, you see it here. So finally you get this particular equation when you subtract these terms from both the sides. Okay, you get this. Just simplifying it here, you will get this particular equation. The same equation that you got in case of cylinder also. So only thing is, now in both the cases, because the temperature distribution is same, which is parabolic in the nature, means, okay, so the temperature is varying parabolically. And now it means if this is the either cylinder or the sphere and this is the center, and if I have to plot the temperature on this axis, so I will say that the temperature variation would be something like this. Okay, it is parabolic, and here we have the maximum temperature. This is the temperature profile. Okay, now let us proceed to the next topic. It is a very important topic. Next topic. One more thing about this particular topic, we have just derived the equation of the temperature distribution. What you can do is you can also calculate the value of Q, uh, heat conducted out, and it's quite simple. Why quite simple? Because you just have to apply the equation Q dot is equal to minus K A dt by dr at R is equal to 0, or you can also calculate this value at R is equal to capital R. In both the cases, you will get the same value. And what would be that value? That value should be equal to whatever is the total heat generated. Now, if I want to calculate the total heat, that should be equal to Q per unit volume. Okay, so the unit here is watt per meter cube. You can multiply it by the volume of the cylinder, which is pi r square into L. L can be considered as the length of the cylinder. So if you are taking a case of cylinder, the final value of Q dot should come out to be this value only. If you are considering the case of a sphere, in that particular case, Q total which has been generated that should be equal to q dot into 4 by 3 pi r cube, and this is equal to q conducted. So when you use this particular equation for calculating the value of the um, heat which is conducted out, that should be equal to same as the value of the heat which is generated within the solid. So you try this and then you let me know whether you got the same value or not. Now let us move to the next topic. This is very important topic as far as the heat conduction is concerned, and lot of numerical problem, whether you talk about engineering services, whether you talk of civil services or any other PSUs, you will get numerical problems or objective questions on this particular topic actually. So uh, it now we are talking about the transient heat conduction, and we would like to know what is the significance of the transient heat conduction. Now, first of all, we should know what is the transient heat conduction. Basically, when the properties are varying with respect to time, then we will say it is a transient phenomena. It's not a steady state phenomena. Okay, transient means the temperature is a function of time. Okay, temperature is a function of time, tau. So that is the transient phenomena, and there can be many cases where you would where you would have this type of the transient heat conduction. For example, uh, like it is said here, this transient heat conduction or heat transfer occurs in boiler tubes, rocket nozzles, electric irons, automobiles, automobile engines, cooling of IC engines, cooling and freezing of the food, heat treatment of metals by quenching, heating and cooling of buildings. For all practical purposes, it is necessary to know the time taken to attain a certain temperature when the environment suddenly changes. So basically, for example, if we are talking about the freezing of the food, now the outside temperature is suppose if it is summer, it is 35 degrees Celsius, and you are carrying out the freezing of the food. That means you want a temperature of minus 5 degrees Celsius. So you are reducing the temperature from 35 to 5 minus 5 degrees Celsius in a certain period of time. So it is important for us that in how much time the food would be food will reach to its freezing temperature actually. So that is important. Similarly, sometimes we are carrying out the heat treatment of alloys, and you know when we carry out the heat treatment of alloys, uh, we actually heat the solid to a particular temperature, maybe 723 or 773. I don't remember exactly the values, and then you do various processes like hardening, tempering, and so on. You cool these according to the requirement actually. So that is also a case of transient heat conduction. But we would like to know that how much time it takes to cool a solid from a higher temperature to a particular value of the temperature. Okay, so that we can know how much heat will be transferred during that period. Okay, so both these are important for us, the time as well as the temperature. So uh, these are the various diagrams. This is boiler tubes, this is the rocket nozzle, jet engines, electric iron, cooling and freezing of food, heating and cooling of buildings. This occurs on the daily basis. Heat treatment of metal by quenching. Okay, so now when we talk about the transient heat conduction problems, these can be divided into two areas. The first one is the periodic heat flow. Periodic heat flow means, for example, if you talk about this particular case, heating and cooling of building. So what happens during the night period, the building is cooled, and during the day period, the building is heated, and once again during the night period it will be cooled, then in the day period it will be heated. So there is a periodic heating and cooling. So there is a periodic heating and cooling. But when you talk about the quenching of the metal actually, so if the metal is at high temperature, let us say 763 or 73 degrees Celsius, and when you quench it, so its temperature may drop to say 100 degrees Celsius. Okay, over a certain period of time. So naturally, this is not going to increase again. So it's a non-periodic type of transient heat conduction. So basically, we can divide this transient heat conduction problems into two types of the cases. The first one is the periodic, and the second one is the non-periodic actually. Okay, so periodic means variation of the temperature within over a period of 24 hours. Means if you talk about the Earth's surface also, that also undergoes the periodic heat transfer. And in non-periodic type, the temperature of at any point within the system varies non-linearly with the time. So as I told you, during the process of quenching of the solid body, this is a solid body which is at 773, and when you quench it in say oil, could be water, or could be some other fluid actually. Okay, so its temperature will start dropping, and such a case will be there will be non-linear variation of the temperature with respect to time. Okay, so what actually happens is initially the drop in temperature is large, but as the temperature of the body approaches the temperature of the fluid, then its drop in temperature actually reduces. So that is why we call it as a non-linear drop in temperature with respect to time. So now we are interested in calculating the time required by a body to cool from a particular temperature to a particular to some other temperature. Okay, so let us see uh, time required by a body to cool to ambient temperature. Okay, or it could be higher than ambient temperature also. Basically, we are interested in calculating how much time it will take from a uh, value when its temperature is quite high. Okay, that is what we are interested in. We can reverse the case also. It could be the time required to heat a body from the ambient temperature. So both things can be considered, and the derivation which we are doing right now is valid for both the cases. Okay, so once again I am telling you it's a very very important case. So what we have shown here, we have a solid body here. Okay, the surrounding temperature is T infinity and the surrounding heat transfer coefficient is H. So just try to focus it here. Uh, so we can also call that initial temperature of the body when the time is considered as 0. It is equal to Ts, or sometimes we can call it as Ti also. Okay, Ts stands for basically the temperature of the body, and it does not depict uh, a proper way to represent the initial temperature. So sometimes we can use the figure Ti also, the nomenclature Ti, because I represents initial. So both ways we can use it. Either we can say the initial temperature of the body is Ts, or we can say the initial temperature of the body is Ti. Whatever suits you, you can consider that. Okay, I have used both here. So just try to focus here. Now what happens, it's a solid body. Once again, it's a solid body. Okay, and its temperature is Ts or Ti, and let T be the temperature of the body at time tau greater than 0. That means T is greater than T infinity. Okay, so effectively if you will say, I can say that initial temperature of the body, if it is 700 degrees Celsius and the surrounding temperature is, let us say, 30 degrees Celsius. So T is any temperature which is varying with respect to time actually. So T is a function of time actually. So naturally the T will be greater than T infinity till T has not approached T infinity. So basically how this phenomena is taking place, this phenomena is taking place initially the solid has been heated up to that particular temperature, and suddenly it is dipped into the, or it is kept open in the surrounding air or surrounding oil or fluid. Means it is dipped into the surrounding fluid actually. That surrounding fluid could be air also, could be oil also, or could be water also. Okay, so what will happen when it is dipped in the surrounding fluid? The body, which body? The solid body will start losing the heat to the atmosphere. So here I have, for the sake of convenience, we have considered the surrounding fluid as atmosphere. Okay, by convection. So you can see the solid body, it is losing heat because of convection here. Now, there is one more important thing that I would like to tell you. You must be surprised that why I am not considering the temperature variation within the solid. Okay, so what we are considering here is that the temperature within the solid is nearly constant. So I will let you know about that later on. Okay, but for the timing, you should always keep in your mind that the temperature inside the solid body in this particular case has been considered to be constant. So whatever is the temperature at the center, same will be the temperature at the surface of the solid body. Okay, so once again, if this is the solid body and if this is the center of the solid body, whatever is the temperature here, I am considering the temperature to be same here. So the temperature here is Ti, initial temperature, and the initial temperature is Ti. And even during the cooling also, we will consider that whatever is the temperature of the surface, same is the temperature at the center. And this is basically a sort of assumption that I will make you understand later on. So that is the only reason that we are saying that the body is losing heat to the atmosphere by convection only, and we are not considering any conduction within the solid actually, because the center line temperature or the center temperature at the center of the solid and the surface of the solid is same actually. Okay, so the body is losing heat to the atmosphere by convection. Therefore, heat lost by convection at time tau should be equal to, now if the body is losing heat, what should happen to its internal energy? It should decrease actually. So it should be change or decrease in the internal energy of the body. Okay, so that is basically the energy balance. So how to write that? Now you can see it here. So we are considering this particular loss of heat by the body at time tau. It is not the initial time actually. So the body started losing heat when tau was equal to 0, and now the time is actually equal to tau. Okay, so I am considering this particular tau after the start of the process of cooling actually. So then I am considering that heat lost due to convection, which will be given by now at any instant tau is equal to tau, T is equal to T, temperature is equal to T. So H A T minus T infinity. Now what is this A? This is the surface area of the solid actually. This A is the surface area of the solid, and that should be equal to change in internal energy or rate of change of internal energy. And you can see it here. This is rho into volume into specific heat of the solid into dt by d tau. So this is basically rate of change of temperature with respect to time. And you can see it here. Rho v stands for the mass, c stands for the specific heat. So mass into specific heat into temperature change. So it is internal energy divided by d tau means rate of change of internal energy. And we have introduced a negative sign here. Why? Because the body is losing the heat and its internal energy is decreasing. That is why we have to insert a negative sign here. Okay, and then once again focus on this particular equation. What I have considered is let t minus t infinity is equal to theta. So I can differentiate this equation. I will get dt by d tau because t infinity is constant. Okay, t infinity is constant, and that should be equal to d theta by d tau. Okay, if this is clear, if so what we can do is we can replace dt by d tau by d theta by d tau. So you can see it here. Here we are having dt by d tau, and here we are having t minus t infinity. So t minus t infinity is theta, and dt by d tau is equal to d theta by d tau. So this is the equation that we get. H a theta is equal to minus rho vc d theta by d tau. Okay. So once again, this is the equation here. Once again, I have written it. H a theta is equal to minus rho vc d theta by d tau. And now we can rearrange this equation. So d tau can be taken to this side, rho vc can be taken in the denominator, and this is what we get. And theta is taken on the right hand side. So this is the equation that you get. Just try to look it carefully. Otherwise, if you don't want to use theta, you can directly write this equation as HA over rho Vc d tau, and it is equal to minus dt over t minus t infinity. And the same thing, it will not make any difference actually. It is just to uh, make the things easier that we have considered t minus t infinity as theta. So let us see now we can integrate this particular equation. If we integrate this equation, we will get HA rho Vc into tau, and here we will get minus log of t minus t infinity plus c1. Okay. And if we would have been using this particular equation when we are considering t minus t infinity as theta, we will get this particular equation, which is same. The left hand side is still same. In place of t minus t infinity, it is theta plus c1. So no change actually. So this is the equation number 1 actually. You use this or use this, one and the same thing. Okay. So basically now there is only one variable, one constant in this particular equation actually. See, earlier cases, all the earlier cases, we were getting two constants c1 and c2 wherever we have done the calculation or derived the expressions. But in this particular case, we only have one constant. So we want to calculate the value of this one constant c1. So how to calculate? See, in the earlier cases, we were considering the boundary conditions, and the boundary condition were related to the space coordinates, like x at this particular value of x, the value of t is equal to tw, like this, or at x is equal to 0, t is equal to the center line temperature. So these are the two types of the boundary conditions. Or we have used at r is equal to 0, dt by uh, dr is equal to 0. Okay. So these types of the boundary conditions we have used. But in this particular case, there is nothing related to the space coordinate, because if you talk about the solid body, we are already saying that the temperature is constant throughout the solid body. There is no temperature difference between the at the center of the body or at the surface of the body. So no temperature differential, no temperature gradient is existing in the solid body. So uh, here we need to apply the some sort of initial condition. There won't be any boundary condition, but we can apply the initial condition. And this initial condition is, when the time is equal to 0, what is the temperature of the solid body? It is equal to Ts. And I said that I can also use Ti. So you can say it is either Ts or Ti. And you know that if I am using T minus T infinity is equal to theta, so when I will put it as T as Ti, or hello, okay, when I will put take tau is equal to 0 and put T as Ts, so I will get this value. Okay. Or I can say this can also be written in a different way. If I am using Ti, I can write it as Ti minus T infinity is equal to theta I. Only thing is that instead of S, I am using I. So one and the same thing. Either you can use either of these two actually. Okay. So you put the values here in this particular equation. Tau is equal to 0. So the first term will become 0. So C1 will become log of Ts minus T infinity, or Ts minus T infinity, as I told you, is theta s. So log of theta s is equal to C1. So now we can put the value of C1 in equation 1 here. C1 has been calculated here. So we can put this value in this particular equation. So this was the equation with C1. The value of C1 came out to be this, and now we are putting the value of C1 in the above equation. So you can see same term HA tau over rho VC, and then here we have log natural T minus T infinity, and in place of C1 we are writing Ts minus T infinity. And then it's quite easy. I can uh, take this on this side, right side, and I can bring this term on the left hand side. So finally I will get log of T minus T infinity divided by Ts minus T infinity. Why we have done this way is actually, that is important to understand, because we want the numerator term in the form of T minus T infinity, and the denominator term in form of Ts minus T infinity, and this is the maximum temperature difference. Ts minus T infinity is the maximum temperature difference, whereas T is the temperature to be calculated. So that is why we are keeping T minus T infinity in the numerator, and we have to take its log also. And because we have taken this term on the right hand side, so we get a negative sign here. And finally, the in the numerator it is theta, in the denominator it is theta s, and the value will be equal to, because log is taken on the right hand side, it's a sort of anti-log, so the right side becomes e raised to power minus h a tau over rho vc. So that is the final equation. This is what I have written here. Theta over theta is equal to e raised to power minus h a tau over rho vc, or it can also be written as t minus t infinity ti minus t infinity e raised to power minus h a tau over rho vc. Okay, so only thing is, instead of theta s, I am using theta I. Theta s is same as theta I actually. Okay, there is no difference. As I told you, I have considered the initial temperature as Ti, or you can consider the initial temperature as Ts. So you will get this particular equation. Uh, any questions about this till now? This is the time required by body to cool to the ambient temperature. So whatever the equation that you have got here, this equation which you have got here, this can be utilized for calculating the temperature of the body which is being cooled at any instant of time. So if you will put the value of the time here, you will get the value of this particular temperature. That what would be the temperature of the body after uh, after the start of the cooling, when the time was equal to 0, and at what time the temperature will reach which level actually. Okay, if you know the time, you can calculate the temperature, and if you know the temperature, you can calculate the time to cool up to that particular temperature. Both ways it can be done. Now let us focus on one more important thing here. So this is the final expression once again. Now what change has been done in this particular case? Let us try to see this expression here first of all. This expression, just focus here on the right hand side. This expression here. Okay, what we have written is h a tau. So this is h, this is a, this is tau. In the denominator it is rho c and v. So rho c and v. Now if you will see here, this is area per unit volume. So area has the units meter square, volume has the units meter cube. So when we will divide it, we will get the term in the form of length actually. So h and tau was already there, it is there, rho and c is also there, and this a by v is now written as L, and this L is sometimes written as LC. LC stands for characteristic length. Characteristic length. Okay, characteristic length. Or it could be written as characteristic dimension also, and it is the ratio of area per unit volume. So that is why now this expression here is written as T minus T infinity divided by Ts minus T infinity e raised to power minus h tau divided by rho LC. Okay, rho LC. So this is the final expression that we get. Here we have written where L is equal to, rather than L, we can write LC is equal to characteristic length of the body under consideration. Okay, so let us proceed further. Now let us try to uh, think about this h tau over rho LC. This is the expression h tau over rho LC. So let us focus here. It is h tau over rho LC. Now what we have done here, if you will see in the numerator, it's already h and tau. This is h and this is tau. So what we have done, we have multiplied by L and K in the numerator. And same way, rho LC. So rho and LC. So basically when you multiply it by L and K, so K is here and L becomes L square, and tau was already there. So if this is clear, so basically we have multiplied this term by LK and also divided by LK. Okay, and this L here that we are using is the characteristic length. This is LC, you can say LC. This is also LC. Okay, LC, characteristic length. We can change it later on also. Now it is a combination of two terms, and these two terms, rather I will say this whole term is now designated as the multiplication of two non-dimensional number. One number is known as Boyer's number, written here, and other number is known as Fourier's number, FO. Okay, so basically this whole term is equal to Boyer's number into Fourier number. So what is Boyer's number and what is Fourier's number? This first term, this one, if you will see here, HLC upon K. So HLC upon K, this term is actually known as Boyer's number. And what we can do is we can just try to see it here. We can multiply the numerator and denominator by area. Here we are multiplying and dividing by area. So you can see in the numerator it is H, LC and area. In the denominator we have K, it was already existing, and A we have multiplied it. And then we can write here L over Ka. So LC over Ka. So this term we have considered, this we have written in the numerator, and this term HA we have taken in the denominator. Now you just try to understand it. Now what is this term? L over Ka. You remember the case of the plane wall. This L upon Ka is the conductive resistance, and 1 over HA, this is the convective resistance. So basically Boyd's number is the ratio of the conductive resistance to the convective resistance. And Fourier number, uh, what is Fourier number? Fourier number is this term K tau rho L square C. So K tau rho L square C. And if you see here K rho C, so K over rho C is known as alpha, and alpha is thermal diffusivity. Thermal diffusivity. Okay, so finally you get Fourier number as alpha tau over L square. So once again on the right hand side also I have shown all these uh, uh, how we are going to get the Boyd's number and Fourier number. Okay, it's shown here. Now one more important thing that you would uh, you should try to understand is the value of k that you are writing here. Now this k is ks. S means for the solid body. Okay, we are not considering the um, thermal conductivity of the surrounding fluid actually. So basically Fourier numbers is HLC upon K solid. So this is the value of the Boyd's number. Okay, this is the Boyd's number, and the Fourier number is given by alpha tau over LC square. Okay, alpha tau over LC square. So I hope this is clear. Now I will let you know this page only, and then I will finish the lecture. This is also known as, means the topic which we have just covered. This is actually known as lumped heat capacity analysis. This is very, very important. It is lumped heat capacity analysis because we have considered the solid body as a whole. Okay, we have considered it as a lump, lump of the solid. Okay, lump of solid. And when we are considering lump of the solid, that is why we are considering that the temperature of this lump, whether you take anywhere, if this is Ti, then the temperature here is also Ti. If you are considering here the temperature as T2, then the temperature anywhere in the solid is T2. Okay, so basically you take any location in the solid, the temperature is same actually. But this is not the exact thing that I want to tell you. This can only be valid, means this is valid only when the value of the thermal conductivity is very, very large in comparison to heat transfer coefficient. And it's true, if we have a solid and its thermal conductivity is very, very high, then there won't be any change in the temperature at the center and at the surface if the value of k is very, very large, very large. Okay, because there will be immediately transfer of the energy and the temperature will remain constant. Now if we talk in terms of the Boyd's number, we said that the Boyd's number is equal to uh, uh, conduction resistance divided by R convection. Okay, it is actually equal to L by Ka, Lc by Ka divided by 1 over H into A. So this is conduction resistance and this is convection resistance. So if we are talking in this term, then we should say if the value of the K is very large, then the value of R conduction should be very, very low. Okay, and the Boyd's number should also be very, very low. So basically this lumped heat capacity analysis or formulation is valid when the resistance due to conduction is very, very small. Okay, conduction is very, very small, has a very small resistance as compared to resistance due to convection. And high value of K means there is no temperature gradient in the body, and hence we can assume the body is at constant temperature or the uniform temperature throughout the body. Now, what is the validity of this lumped heat capacity analysis? The validity is when the value of the Boyd's number is less than 0.1. When the validity of the Boyd's number is when the Boyd's number is less than 0.1, then we can use this particular equation which we have derived earlier. This equation. Okay, this equation. So when we consider the Boyd's number to be less than 0.1, we say that there is less than 5% variation within the solid body. So it directly means if this is the solid body and the temperature at the center is 100 degrees Celsius, then at the surface the temperature will be say 96 point about 95.9. Okay, or 95.01. So it's a variation of less than 5%. So when the Boyd's number, once again, when the Boyd's number is less than 0.1, the variation in the temperature within the solid body is less than 5%, and only in that particular condition we can apply lumped heat capacity analysis. And lumped heat capacity analysis is used for calculating the variation of the temperature of the surface of the body with respect to time, and this is the equation that is to be used. And you have seen that this value was equal to Boyd's number into Fourier's number. So we can say theta over theta s is equal to e raised to power minus Boyd's number into Fourier number, and it is very very important equation. So I will end my lecture here. Any questions you can ask?